What's going on, man? Welcome back to the basement. I'm Ron. I almost feel rusty on the mic with the setup. The last time that I talked with you guys or that I sat down and recorded a video was last Wednesday. So what, Wednesday? So Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. Haven't recorded a video in 4 days now. So a little bit, feels almost foreign at this point, but that's just because we're in the in-season grind. Took a nice little, I took a nice little break with the family, spent a lot of time with my family, spent a lot of time with my dog, some friends I haven't seen that have been away at college. So I hope you guys all had a great Thanksgiving weekend as well, but it's time to get back to business. Talking week 12, top 10 lessons learned. Let's not waste any more time. If you want daily fantasy football content to help you guys win your championships, make sure you go down below, subscribe, leave a like. Let's go.
Thirsty, trying to choose. I know I'm pretty cool. My nitty babe.
All right, so I'm a little bit all over the place. I didn't really even explain what we're doing today, but this is our top 10 lessons learned show episode where we talk about my top 10 lessons learned, observations, takeaways, all that good stuff. Just 10 notes that I jotted down while watching the games yesterday. And the first one on the list is Elijah Mitchell bell cow. The guy is literally this year's James Robinson. He is this year's James Robinson. Shout out to Ray GQ. He said it a while back. There's like a sick clip out there where he said that on Mike Lou's podcast on Bunk Bed Breakdowns. Great Dynasty podcast. Amazing. Ray GQ loved Elijah Mitchell coming out of Louisiana. He's part of the reason why I had Elijah Mitchell so high on my draft boards. I ended up with Elijah Mitchell, and I want to say I had 40% exposure to him in Dynasty leagues. He, for me, feels a lot like James Robinson at this point, where we know he is a skilled running back. He had 26 carries for 133 yards and a touchdown yesterday, had 6 targets, 5 catches, 35 yards through the air. I mean, that's in a game coming back from a finger injury where, I don't know if it was like a fractured finger. He just had a pin in his finger, so that's a fumble risk. That's just a discomfort risk, when you have to hold on to the football. It's crazy. He's using him a ton. There's a great tweet from John Daigle. Elijah Mitchell, 70% snaps and 91% share of the backfield touches, 32 of 35. In his first game back after breaking, I think he fractured his finger, but for the tweet, he broke his finger, were season high marks. Mitchell has not handled less than 72% of San Francisco's backfield touches in 7 full games he's played this year. I mean, that's just, it's insane. He's giving him that, Raheem Mostert type treatment where if he's healthy, he is going to be the bell cow, which is pretty crazy. Now, Jacob Sanderson had a really good tweet / thread saying that in Dynasty, you want to treat Elijah Mitchell kind of like James Robinson, where he's a good running back. He's not a long-term locked and loaded guy. So once that price kind of goes into top 12 running back range in Dynasty, you sell. But as long as it's in back end RB2 range, you probably just want to hold and ride it out, which I agree with. Now, did I sell Elijah Mitchell in a couple places? Or I sold him in one place. I sold Elijah Mitchell and Kadarius Toney to get James Robinson in the league. Kind of hate that move now, but it was just I'm a contending team in that league. I think I'm pretty much about to be second place competing for a bye. But in terms of redraft, this is more of a redraft video anyways. But Elijah Mitchell is pretty much a locked and loaded top 15 running back. Now, I also wanted to highlight that the 49ers usage has been really weird because Elijah Mitchell, like we said, had 6 targets, 5 catches, 35 yards through the air. He had more receptions than a wide receiver on his team, Deebo Samuel. Deebo Samuel had 4 targets, 1 catch, 12 yards through the air, which it's weird. It's weird. I don't. It's just a takeaway that the way that I don't know if Shanahan. I guess it's kind of a plus to kind of use your offense as interchangeable parts. Where, I think that he had a play where he had a running back. He had Jeff Wilson at tight end and Deebo at running back and Juszczyk playing wide receiver. He just had a really funky way to align his personnel. But Deebo Samuel had a great day yesterday, but he had 6 carries, 66 yards, 2 touchdowns on the ground. All of his production came through the ground. And Jacob, sums it up really nicely here. He says Deebo is the 3rd highest scoring fantasy wide receiver since week 10. He has 7 catches in that time. Because as my phone goes off, which is insane. since week 10. So 10, 11, 12. So the last 3 weeks, he only has 7 catches and is the wide receiver 3 in that span. Now, again, Elijah Mitchell had more receptions than Deebo Samuel. He tied for the most targets on the team with Brandon Ayuk. Brandon Ayuk also had a decent day, 6 targets, 3 catches, 91 yards. Kittle only had 2 targets. So when you look at this whole thing, at the top of the reception total poll is Elijah Mitchell and Ayuk. Then you have Deebo, and then we're not even really looking to, have Kittle involved in the passing game. Kittle only had 2 targets. I wonder if it was, him just kind of pass or run blocking a ton, but it's just something to note that the 49ers are using their players in very weird ways. I will say Deebo Samuel's hurt. You kind of hate to see it. I don't think that it's going to be a long-lasting injury, but we'll see. Some kind of groin injury. He's getting an MRI on. I hope that he's okay. Now, our third takeaway is Jaylen Waddle's for real. I kind of had, I had Jaylen Waddle lower than consensus, but I still liked him because as a true freshman, he outproduced Devonta Smith and maybe Henry Ruggs. I want to say it was like Judy, then Waddle. He played really well as a freshman at Alabama, sophomore year, down year, and then just injuries at the end. You hold on to that freshman year, early declare, top 10 overall draft pick, solid prospect. Now, the thing that I'll say with Jaylen Waddle is he just had 10 targets, 9 catches, 137 yards, and a touchdown. He now has a 22.6% target share on the season and is wide receiver 20 in points per game. He is now in, legitimate wide receiver territory based on what he's doing in year one. Now, we talk about all offseason. We're going to get into it a ton more in the offseason, but year one, by my process at least, is the biggest indicator for future success. As much as I care about people as prospects and, what they did as prospects, what you did in year one speaks way more volume, right? With a guy when, I had Denzel Mims ahead of Brandon Ayuk 2 draft classes ago. Ayuk goes crazy. Denzel Mims doesn't do much. Okay, Ayuk way ahead. Now, same thing can be said for Waddle and Terrace Marshall. I had Terrace Marshall ahead of Jaylen Waddle. I'll take that L. Now, Terrace Marshall isn't doing much. Jaylen Waddle is an absolute stud. I'm not going to hold on to my pride and say, no, Jaylen Waddle, I didn't like him as a prospect. I'm willing to be fluid. I will move with the market on Jaylen Waddle. And I went into the database real quick. I had to dust off the cobwebs on this thing. But I think in the offseason, when I'm going to take like a month to we're going to slow down on uploads. I'm going to get everything on the back end, update the Patreon, do some business side of things with maybe talk with like an accountant or something, kind of get some things figured out on the back end, revamp the Patreon. Like I said, I might get into my spreadsheets and revamp all those as well, like update them with the new classes and get all that done. I also made like a huge prospect database last year. I might do that again. We'll see. But with this, we have sophomore comps, and I take each player's rookie season's PFF grade, which we know is really predictive, their points per game, and then their breakout finder prospect grade, which is from Player Profiler. They have their own like wide receiver prospect model. So I can kind of gauge the quality of a prospect, the quality of the prospect, what they did in year one, and kind of find who their comps look like. And this is Jaylen Waddle's. And it's a pretty wild list, man. Jaylen Waddle's all the way at the bottom. His rookie year lives up to Michael Thomas, Mike Evans, Dwayne Bowe, Calvin Ridley, Juju Smith-Schuster, A.J. Brown. Calvin Benjamin's not great. Eddie Royal's not great. But Terry McLaurin, Chase Claypool, T. Higgins, Brandon Ayuk, Deebo Samuel. He is in that tier of year one stud, which means, he has top 5 wide receiver in his range of outcomes like a Ridley, Dwayne Bowe, Mike Evans, Michael Thomas at the top of that list. He also seems like he is going to be a firm, bet for top 12 to top 24 seasons in his near future. I'm a big fan of Jaylen Waddle. I was just a little bit skeptical because his profile was a little bit more risky. Now, I will say he does fit that dynamic beta, role that we talked about in the offseason, like a Tyreek Hill, like an Antonio Brown. So I do think that he has that upside. Kadarius Toney is another dynamic beta. Elijah Moore is another dynamic beta. So we're definitely going to be doing a little bit more digging on the dynamic beta stuff from last year. Now, that I don't know how many of you guys have even seen my dynamic beta stuff. Maybe I'll put it in the comments, but it was just something that we looked at because we see, the Michael Thomases, the Mike Evans of the world, they go crazy, 20-plus point per game type seasons. Cooper Kupp is even like technically an alpha, but we saw that the smaller wide receivers, if they were, really good kick returners in college and they kind of fit a certain build, that they were also prone to have those kind of boom seasons. Now, moving on from that, I'm gonna do my dynasty rankings. This is all over the place, but I'm gonna be doing my dynasty rankings update this Friday, Saturday. So that'll all be out. It'll be updated with Jaylen Waddle's new spot. So I kind of just wanted to take some time to look at Jaylen Waddle and how he was doing, because I looked at like 15 points per game is no joke. Now, our fourth takeaway is Hunter Renfrow for MVP. The guy is a god, a grape bearing god. I should have grabbed the picture of him with the grapes and put it up here, but he's currently the wide receiver 24 in points per game. He just had 9 targets, 8 catches, 134 yards on Thanksgiving Day. He was out there cooking. I think he was cooking like Trevon Diggs and stuff, man. Like, he is a really solid route runner. I don't think that he doesn't have like a top 12 ceiling, but he is a really good flex play. I have him on one of my contending dynasty teams. That's a best ball league. So when he gives you, that 15 points, that'll just go right into your flex spot. It's perfect every time. Again, wide receiver 24 in points per game. This is a guy who was going undrafted. I wish I had him in more best ball. It was such an obvious best ball pick. Hunter Renfrow was going to get his. I've been meaning to do a tweet, but I did research. My first year in fantasy, I wrote on Player Profile. If you look up like Ron Stewart Player Profiler, and you like scroll down, year 2 breakouts. I did an article on year 2 breakouts and how yards per route run in year 1 holds up over time. That stat has been charted since 2017. Of the top 10, when I wrote that article, I don't know now, but when I wrote that article, of the top 10 players in rookie yards per route run, 7 of them were from that 2019 class. And it was everybody who's actually insane. It was Deontay Johnson, Renfrow, A.J. Brown, Deebo Samuel, Marquise Brown, DK Metcalf, I think. I don't know, but it was just a wild group of names that was up there with guys like, I think Cooper Kupp was even on there. It was like Cooper Kupp, DJ Moore, Juju Smith-Schuster, and then 7 wide receivers from the 2019 draft class. So, and then Terry McLaurin was in there too. That's who I was forgetting. But yeah, wild yards per route run in your rookie year is a really, really good stat, but also pretty cool to see. Now, in our 5th takeaway, we have Dalvin Cook is a broken man, and I feel really bad for him, man. I feel really bad. He is now dislocated. He dislocated a shoulder, I think, and that's what is holding him up here. So now he needs to get an MRI and see what's going on. Apparently, he dislocated his other shoulder he had a torn labrum in his other shoulder, dislocated the new shoulder, has 4 shoulder dislocations since high school, not counting the 2 that he currently has. So sucks, man. It sucks. It sucks that Dalvin Cook has, like that. I can't even imagine like having to play with a torn labrum and have shoulder issues like this. It just sucks, man. And it kind of explains a lot, because we weren't keyed in on the fact that he had a shoulder injury. And I think that's probably one of the reasons why his efficiency has dipped. His expected points per game was great this year, but last year why he was so dominant is because he had his expected points per game and he performed over that. So maybe he was around like 18 expected points per game. He was going up to like 22, 23. This year, his expected points per game is like 18, 19. He's hovering around that like 17 points per game range. Now, some of those games, he's coming out early due to injury and all that kind of stuff is going on, but he's not having that same kind of like dominant, like, up there with like a Jonathan Taylor, Christian McCaffrey type season. And I think some of it is because of that injury. Now, we have to talk about it. You hate to see it, but Alexander Mattison, seems like Dalvin Cook will be gone for the next, 2-3 weeks, maybe even season ending. With Madison in the game, he is going to be an RB1 as long as Dalvin Cook is gone. He has the dreads. He has everything. If you just gave him the same exact number as Dalvin Cook, he would probably give you about 85% of that production, and I truly believe that in my heart. But it's also it's just a bit at the same time. Alexander Mattison, 51-57 carries, 100% of the RB targets, 20.7% target share, 100% of the RB touches inside of the 10 in the 2 games that he has started this year in Dalvin Cook's absence. Alexander Mattison is going to be a top 12 running back as long as Cook is gone. Now, takeaway number 6. Laviska Shenault is causing me great pain. A painful man to own in fantasy, to hype up in the offseason. He was one of the ones that we didn't get, man. He was one of the ones that we didn't get in the offseason. We had some hits. We had some hits on DeAndre Swift, on Jalen Hurts. This one didn't pan out, man. It sucks. It's so bad. But Laviska Shenault causing me great pain. Nope. So yesterday, he ran less snaps, less routes, and had less targets than Laquan Treadwell. If you can't outproduce Laquan Treadwell or keep Laquan Treadwell off the field, it's tough. It's tough, man. He had 9 targets for 5 catches and 33 yards, or 7 targets for 5 catches, 33 yards. Just not amazing. You know, I thought Laviska was better than this. You know, you can blame it on Urban Meyer. You can blame it on anybody. But, I mean, Jamal Agnew gets hurt. DJ Chark gets hurt. And if we are now at that point and Laviska Shenault is still not breaking out in any way, it's probably never meant to happen, which sucks. Now, I do think that he has an outside shot at like a year 3 breakout. If we want to talk about next year, I think this year it's time to he's pretty much done. You know, he can give you, I don't know. He's like a fine, like stash type wide receiver 4, wide receiver 5 guy to have on your bench. He gives you some upside if he does, you know, just break out spontaneously. Probably won't happen. He has an outside shot at a year 3 breakout like a Deebo Samuel, where comes out of nowhere, is drafted in like a similar range because people kind of get hype on him. But it's tough. It's tough. And in Dynasty, I'd probably, if I could sell him for a second and just re-roll into a new wide receiver, I probably would. And it sucks to say that. Laviska Shenault was an upside shot. It just hasn't worked out for him. Again, maybe he turns things around, but extremely tough for Laviska Shenault. Then we have T. Higgins positive regression. And then also, I added in parentheses here, I'm not super concerned about Jamar Chase. Now, T. Higgins went out there, 8 targets, 6 catches, 114 yards, a touchdown, looked great. Hadn't scored a touchdown since week 2. So we, as the T. Higgins hive, really needed that. We really needed that for the brand. And T. Higgins has matched Jamar Chase in targets this year in the games they've played together. Literally down to the exact number. They are not even really 1A, 1B. They are 1 and 1. They are a tandem. And I'll say this. I'm not even super concerned about Jamar Chase. I think the beginning of the season, the way that he was winning, he had less than a 24% target share. He actually had like less volume. It was never a volume thing for him. He was just winning on monster efficiency. He would get like a 20% target share and then produce his expectation by a ton. Now he's getting fine amount of volume. He's just kind of underproducing. Now this game, the targets weren't there. He only had like 3 targets this game, but in the past few weeks, he's had more targets. The efficiency hasn't been there. I have to believe that Jamar Chase is a really talented player, as we know, and that the efficiency will rebound. So I do believe that T. Higgins and Jamar Chase will be fine. I think Jamar Chase went from, top 5 must-start wide receiver, league winner type guy to fringe top 15 kind of guy. I think that he probably belongs in like the fringe top 15 on a weekly basis. I think T. Higgins probably belongs like the fringe top 24, top 20 on a weekly basis, and they'll both just kind of coexist, and each of them will have their on and off weeks. Again, I wouldn't be. I'm not concerned about Jamar Chase. I'm not concerned about T. Higgins. I'm also not getting over my skis on T. Higgins. At number 8, we have Myles Gaskin. Had a big day, but it's a little bit misleading. He had 16 carries, 49 yards on the ground, 2 touchdowns, 2 targets for 2 receptions and 3 yards through the air. So he did have 18 touches, but his usage was tough. He only had 50% of the RB touches, which was his lowest share without Malcolm Brown. Now, 9 of Phillip Lindsay's 12 touches or 12 carries occurred once the Dolphins had a big lead. I will say though, even without those carries, Salvon Ahmed really kind of dug into some things. Patrick Laird kind of dug into some things. I think that they're going to give Phillip Lindsay more touches as the season goes on, because now I think that was his first week with the team. We'll talk about this in the trade targets video, but I think that the box score shows a little bit more than what actually happened. Again, he only had 51 total yards, but you get the 2 touchdowns and the 2 receptions added on. He didn't have some monstrous day, and he only played about 50% of the snaps. Then we have at number 9, OBJ's kind of back. Odell Beckham Jr., the prince who was promised, he's kind of back. He played yesterday in that Packers game, looked good. He tied the team, the LA Rams, for the most targets with 10. He tied with Kupp. He had a long touchdown. He had 10 targets. He didn't haul in a good amount of them. He only had 5 receptions, but he had 10 targets, 5 catches, 81 yards, and a touchdown, 19.1 PPR points. I believe JJ Zachariason put out a tweet that said it was his highest scoring game since early last year. Had a 25.6% target share. He ran pretty much all the routes of that game. Now, Ben Skowronek was gone for wasn't active for this game, so they were kind of low on wide receivers, which is why he would be in 100% of the routes. But again, I think this is really positive for OBJ. It's only his second game with this new team. He played great. He looked kind of like the old Odell. I think that he is going to be firmly in like high-end wide receiver 3 territory for me rest of season. I like Odell Beckham. I think this offense makes sense for him. The Rams look rough right now. I don't know what's going on with Matthew Stafford. They looked really good in the beginning of the season. Now, don't come at me do not be telling me that OBJ is like the reason for why they suck now. It's not. Robert Woods got hurt. They kind of are hitting some regression. Matthew Stafford has 3 straight games with pick sixes, so it's a little bit tough all around. But OBJ is now, in my opinion, firmly a wide receiver 3 rest of season. And our last takeaway of the day is some notes on the Jets offense. I want to talk about first the backfield split. We had Austin Walter, who I have never heard of in my entire life, and I'm a Jets fan, and I spend way too much time on football than I probably should in terms of prospects and just guys that are low on the depth chart. Like a guy that I know was on the Jets practice squad for a while was Josh Adams out of Notre Dame. That's a guy who's like a no name, but Austin Walter is truly a no name. He saw 29% of the rushes. He saw 4.3% of the target share. I believe he had a touchdown. He had 9.8 fantasy points yesterday. Coleman had 9. Ty Johnson had 4.2. So it's a really, really tough backfield to navigate here for fantasy. Now, I would say my first reaction would be that they beat up on Houston. Or not beat up, but they beat them by a touchdown. And we're talking about the New York Jets here. They beat Houston. And you would think Ty Johnson's more of the receiving back. He'd be better in a negative game script when they're actually behind. The problem is Coleman was the lead guy in all phases. He saw 13% of the targets to Ty Johnson's 4.3% of the targets. So Tevin Coleman saw the most rushing, the highest rush share and the highest target share. He is probably the lead guy and sadly the only usable back moving forward. I will say I do think that Ty Johnson, I'm shocked by Ty Johnson's usage. I don't think that it's going to be super stable as well. I think we could easily see Ty Johnson come out here next game and be the lead back. We'll see, but Tevin Coleman's at the very least a guy that can give you some usable weeks in fantasy, given the role that he has currently. Then we also have the bottom tweet that I put on here. JJ Zachariason talking about Elijah Moore having a season-high 34.8% target share, which is huge because this was Elijah Moore's first game with Zach Wilson, and he exploded. He had 8 targets, 4 catches, or no, he didn't explode. This was his first game with Zach Wilson since like his explosion of going crazy with the other quarterbacks. He comes back. He didn't have, a great day. No touchdowns, only had 4 catches for 46 yards, but the volume was there. He was the lead target, had 8 targets, 30% plus of the targets. The next highest receiver only had 4 of the targets. So he is still the main guy, even with Zach Wilson. I think the production will come, but seeing the volume there, super promising. Now, that is going to do it for this video on this fine Monday. Hope you guys had a great holiday weekend. I also want to let you guys know we have the Monday game going on tonight. If you haven't already, make sure you check out Underdog Fantasy. Use my promo code Ron when you deposit. If you deposit $10, they'll match $10. You deposit $50, they'll match $50. They will match your deposit all the way up to $100. So if you want to play in their tournaments where you draft a team of like 4 players, you get into the tournament, win some good money that way. I think like the top winner gets like $1,000. You can also do the pick'em games where you do like over under on the passing yards and the receiving yards. A lot of really fun contests on there. If you don't, it's an ugly game. You might not even have any fantasy players in that game. It's a fun way to kind of kick back, watch the game with, you can just have a nice little $10 bet on a couple of the over-unders. Make sure you check out Underdog Fantasy. Use my promo code Ron when you deposit $10 or more today. It'll be in the description. It'll be down below in the comments. I love you guys, and I'll see you tomorrow for the waiver wire ads, I believe.
I got the juice, I got the juice.
Channel, Chatham's on. Foolies glad I'm home. Even my haters kinda glad I'm on. Rest in peace to my vagabond. Rapper, song, singer, suspended, subpoena from Mr.